Just want to highlight a saying by Makhan Singh. He said, there are two Nairobis. This is in 1950. There are two Nairobis, one for the rich and one for the poor. I don't think the situation has got any better. In fact, it's got worse. There are two Nairobis still, or two Kenyas, but the distance between this and this has widened as far as I can make out. Kenya has, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 people who are among the top billionaires in the world. And the rest of the country is right at the bottom, struggling for survival. So what Makhan Singh said was to try and see if we can bridge that gap. I'm talking about the other Kenya. Really, my perspective is the other Kenya, not the Kenya of the rich, but the Kenya of the people. Like comparing, I don't know, I'm not interested in talking about the rich because they have their media, they have the propaganda, they have the government, they have the policies, and they have enough scope to talk about themselves. In fact, we are filled with news. What is called news is really news from that world. So my perspective is different. But we need to recognize what that other group is doing. So when you talk of resistance and repression, keep these things in mind. What is the starting point? And the starting point, I'll quote from Mao. He says, in class society, I assume we all accept that Kenya is a class society. That in a class society that everyone lives as a member of a particular class. And every kind of thinking, without exception, is stamped with the brand of a class. So when somebody comes and tells you something, or when you read something in the newspaper or radio or TV, that thinking, that piece of news is related to the class background of the person who has created or is reciting those things. So we need to be careful and aware that there are the two sides to every news item, and from whose perspective you are looking is an important issue. Why look at repression and resistance? What is the importance of what we are talking about today? First of all, as I said, to understand the past and to know where we are today and where we may end up. That's important. If we are not careful and if we don't see the trend of where we come from and where we are, we'll end up in worse situation than we are now, because the trend is to push the working people to the ground and grind them. It's happening more or less to some extent, but that will continue and increase. So it's important to know where we're coming from. From that, we can create our own future based on our history and our experience. What we experienced in the past at the time of independence or afterwards also is important for us to understand today. We have to defy the lies that our enemies throw at us. We are very often not even informed about people's resistance, or even the term resistance is not used. We don't hear of resistance in any news item or in school curricula. We just hear about very nice sounding things. To understand our reality, we have to know our past. And to understand that another future is possible, that we are not doomed to die. This system under which we live is not created by nature, like water or air, that we can't challenge. We can change it, and we need to understand, to change that situation, we need to organize. And like the Pan-African movement said, organize to not agonize. And I can see this example of the various social justice centers and the network. That is the organization that can change history. The enemy is imperialism. which uses as its weapons colonialism and neocolonialism. Now, we have Kombo's library, and it's worth going there and reading some more of what Nkrumah has said. But that one sentence sums up Africa before and after independence, right up to today. Because colonialism turned into neocolonialism, which has taken control of our lives. And it's important to understand also that repression and resistance are two sides of a coin. The repression started in 1884-85, the so-called Berlin Conference, where the imperialist nations sat down with a map of Africa, and this one said, I want this, I want this, I want this. And they said, okay, you have this. They had a bit of fight about who gets what. In the end, they divided up the whole of Africa, as if Africa, there were no people there, as if it belonged to them, it was their property. And that's when the repression started. The repression, I mean, the extent of the repression can be summed up only in one fact, that the European imperialists killed 10 million Congolese people. Now 10 million, if you think about it, the whole population and more, the whole population of London is I think 7 or 8 million. If you can imagine the whole of London being eaten up and killed, it's massacred, tortured. We are not even talking about the slavery, because that's another story. The colonial period from 1885 to 1963, and 1963, the new colonial phase started, which is ongoing. So that is the context of this thing, and we won't go into the rest of that. Just to go to the conclusion, it just says, Uhuru. We have no independence yet. We have so-called national independence, we have flag, we have political parties, but they all belong to those guys who have captured our country. There is no voice, there is no avenue for working class people and peasants.